Now, people often ask me, how do you file campaign finance or ethics complaints against politicians in Washington state? Well, in this video, I'm going to actually teach you how to file your own complaints against your favorite politicians who have inevitably broken the law. Now, I've put on clinics and training sessions on this topic before, and while many people have taken these training classes, few people are generally willing to actually file these complaints themselves. So I'm kind of hoping that videos like this one will help reduce the reluctance of people to get started on this if they're interested. It's a great hobby. But before we get into your first model complaint, I want to remind you to subscribe to this channel. Go hit the like button down below and then share this video with others who you believe will like this video as well. Even short educational videos like this one are typically shadow banned by those who control YouTube, so it helps if you share it widely with others. And I also want to remind you that I'm happy to put on training classes for a variety of activism skills like filing PDC or ethics complaints against politicians, judges, and others who typically break the law without anyone willing to confront them about their violations. So if this video leaves you wanting more, I'm happy to do in-person training sessions where we will, as a group, research, draft, and file at least one complaint while we're together. My goal is to help you learn how you can do everything you see me do on this channel or on my website. Activism isn't something for others to do. You can be part of the solution as well. Okay, so let's talk about how to file a campaign finance complaint or a PDC complaint against a PAC, judge, politician in Washington state who is or has run for political office. And I don't have time in this video to describe every type of complaint, but I'm going to focus on one type of complaint that you can file and also how you can verify that it's a legitimate complaint, and then briefly how the process you go about to file the complaint itself. Now, I believe that I'm a good person to teach you this skill because I have more experience filing these campaign finance complaints in Washington state than any other person right now. At the time that I'm basically filming this video, I have filed at least about 685 to 690 complaints or so. So far, my complaints have resulted in about 220 politicians, judges, PACs, and political parties who have been fined, sued by the AG's office, or sanctioned by the Public Disclosure Commission. So at any given point in time, several dozen complaints that I have filed are still in the investigative process. If you doubt me or you believe that I'm exaggerating, that's not a problem. You can go to my website, I'll have it linked down below, to see all copies of these case files, or you can go to the PDC website, which I've also linked down below. It stands for the Washington State Disclosure Commission website, and you can search under enforcement cases, type in Glen Morgan as a complainant, and you can find most of the cases there as well. Now, I know what you're thinking. Hey, Glenn, if you give away your secrets, won't these bad guys, the violators, just use that information to avoid complaints in the future? And that's a great question. And yes, they sure will if they actually watch these videos, which I doubt they will do because for some odd reason, they don't seem to like me very much and they're afraid to watch my videos. This is particularly true after they've been forced to pay a fine. So mostly, it really doesn't matter how much I warn them or tell them how I catch their law breaking. They just seem determined to break the law regardless. However, in the rare chance that they actually do watch this video, that's great. I mean, they can start to follow the law for a change, and it'll help all of us with transparency of elections. And if that's the worst that can happen, that sounds like a pretty good outcome to me. So today I'm going to cover this common failure of political candidates to actually report and accurately report their financial affairs on their F1 form. And this is a very common problem and a common violation. There are hundreds of violations of this specific statute every single year. And in this little category of campaign finance violations in Washington state, there's going to be plenty of them. In fact, this is the most common violation committed by political candidates across the state. I broke this law myself. You can actually see here back in 2014. And you can actually see that I was fined $100 for that violation. And I definitely broke the law. And I deserved that fine back then. Because remember, ignorance of the law is no excuse. It certainly wasn't for me back then when I didn't know what I know now. And it is no excuse for the people that I'll be teaching you to file these complaints against either. So when it comes to campaign finance violations, we essentially have a 5-year statute of limitations, which means you can actually go back 5 years and review the information filed by political candidates, PACs, or parties, and any violation you find within that window of time is actually a righteous violation that can be reported to the PDC for enforcement action. So keep this in mind when looking back on a candidate's filing history. Secondly, these financial affairs reports, which are called an F1, which is how I'm going to refer to them from now on, these are due every year on March 15th, or if that day is on a weekend, the following Monday. And it's easy to see if a candidate has actually filed their F1, and you can verify the candidate has filed their F1 by first going to the PDC website at pdc.wa.gov, and it looks like this. And then you go to the box that says for voters and the public, and you will see at the top of the page a box then that says public disclosure reports. So look in the right-hand column, and you're going to see financial affairs disclosure statements. So you click on that, and then you go to a search field menu like this, and that is where that you're going to actually see, you can actually type in a name of your favorite candidate to see if they have actually filed their report. Now, at the time that I'm filming this video, if those political candidates don't have their F1 form filed for this year, they're basically 3 months late and they're already in trouble. There is really no excuse because not only are they notified in advance about the due date, the PDC actually emails mass email reminders to every one of these candidates actually on just a regular basis every week for many weeks to encourage them to comply with the law. So right now, approximately 200 or so of them have still not complied. So if you're watching this video in 2024 and future years, I would recommend just verifying the timeliness of these filings starting just a few weeks after they're due in March 15th, and because that's when they're originally due. That's a good time to start. So let me show you an example of a complaint that I just did for a failure to file an F1 form. So I typed in that same report, James Dixon, who was the Thurston County Superior Court judge who figured that it was a good idea to approve a $5 million fine against Tim Eyman for failing to follow Washington State's campaign finance laws. What do you know? You can actually see here that recently retired Judge James Dixon from Thurston County, he's been filing campaign finance reports for over a decade. But it looks like he has on occasion, maybe he's been a few months late at times, but generally he's been compliant until this year, where it looks like he just didn't bother to file his F1 report for last year. Now, he retired last year, but he's still obligated to report his last year's financial affairs statement, and you can clearly see that he has not done this. Now, by the way, you can see that at some point there was a naming convention change for this judge as well, and the reports, which seem to be sequential in how he reports them, they actually changed a bit, and the newer reports are actually at the bottom of this list. So always watch for that possibility so that you can see if they actually did file. Another check you can do if you're a bit more advanced, you can use the open source data and search by filer ID, but really don't want to get into that level of detail right now. So let's just look at this the same way anyone in the public would view it. So this looks like a righteous and accurate violation worthy of filing a complaint against former Thurston County Superior Court Judge Dixon. In fact, I actually did file this complaint against him last week, and I'll attach a draft of that complaint for you to view down below. You can model any similar complaints that you might have for this type of violation on the draft of my complaint. Just change the name, the dates, and the appropriate fact pattern, of course, but that can make it easier for you to process if you kind of don't know how to get started. Now, let's find somebody else who actually filed their F1 report, but they decided that they would conceal the truth from the public about their financial affairs. This is an exceptionally common violation as well, by the way. It's rarely caught, however. In fact, while I'm in the process of right now doing kind of a random audit myself on those who attempt to conceal their financial affairs information on this type of report, I've usually had very little trouble finding violations when I actually take the time to look. For example, I produced a video last year detailing basically how I caught Governor Jay Inslee attempting to conceal his board memberships on just a variety of out-of-state corporations, despite the clear and obvious requirement that he actually reports that information to the public for conflict of interest reasons. And Inslee was formally sanctioned by the PDC for this violation, but it is a common law-breaking action. So if you want to see the type of information that they should be reporting on their F1 forms, you go to RCW 4217A 710. I'll link it below. And I've also linked to some other relevant WACs, which stand for Washington Administrative Code, if you want more details about how the PDC interprets or recommends implementation of the statute. They don't take long to read, so they're linked down below, and I'm only focusing on this kind of narrow subset of violations, but it helps if you know what they are supposed to report in the first place. So, okay, how do you know if they're complying? That's a great question. Some things you can't know for sure, of course, but here's what I do to verify that they are reporting the truth or to catch them in a lie, which seems unfortunately common. Number one, I go to the Washington State Secretary of State Corporation's search page. You can look here. And then I type in the name of the politician and I see if they actually show up as a governor, which is basically an officer of a company, or a registered agent of a company, which includes for-profit and nonprofit organizations. And if their name shows up in that capacity for any corporation not reported on their PDC F1 form, well, that's a violation. It's easy to document. If you find this example, then I recommend creating a PDF file of the corporation that shows the listed officer so that the PDC actually knows that you've done your homework. Staff will verify it themselves, of course, but if you have the evidence, it always makes their process more efficient and your complaint much more likely to be verified quickly and processed. Number two, if you're aware that a politician or their spouse owns property, a farm, a business, a rental, or their residence, and it appears that they haven't reported it, you can verify this by looking at your assessor records in your county and searching by their name or the name of their spouse to see if they have concealed information like that from the public. If you know somebody who works in real estate and you're less familiar with the search tools on property, property records, you can actually enlist their help until you kind of get up to speed on that type of search function. Number three, just look at their social media accounts, including LinkedIn, Facebook, etc., and then see where they claim to be employed. And this is the same with their spouse, and then verify that they've actually reported accurately their employment and source of income. It's astonishing to me how many times they don't. I mean, these are just some basic ways that you can verify and confirm the basic accuracy of an F1 report filed by your local politician. That's how I caught Inslee. There are more advanced techniques that you can use regarding kind of reporting unreported gifts or other types of income, but that takes a little bit more time than I have for this video, and the information that I've already given you is enough to get started, really. Feel free to check out your favorite local politician who currently is in office or is running for office or has been in office in the past few years. Just practice on them and see if you find something missing. If you're still wondering if you have done it right, just feel free to reach out to me through my website and let me know what you have found. If you don't feel comfortable filing the complaint yourself, I can verify the problems that you've uncovered and then file the complaint under my name if you want. But I think once you find information that's missing or been incorrectly reported, you're kind of ready to file your complaint. I've linked to a variety of similar complaints that I've made over the years down below in the video description, very similar to what we've just discussed. So you can feel free to use any of them as models for your draft complaint. I recommend drafting up the written portion of the complaint first in Word or Google Docs, and then just copy it and paste it into the complaint section on the PDC website itself. To take the mystery out of filing a complaint, I often file live complaints when I'm doing my training sessions, and it only takes about 5 minutes or less once you have compiled your exhibits and your draft complaint. Mostly it is a self-explanatory kind of checklist there, but you can go to the PDC website and click on the File a Complaint link just to get started. It's very simple and straightforward. And I want to hear from you. Tell me how it went for you in the comment section below if you're filed one or if you're prepping one after you've done it, and then let me know if you have any questions after that. Now, I suspect that if we keep looking closely at our elected officials and they know that we're doing this, they will start to become a bit more honest and slightly more transparent than they have typically been in the past. And we have to start somewhere, so why not here? Why not now? Why not you? I hope you found this video helpful, and let me know in the comment section below if you believe I am missing something critical or if you have any questions. But in closing, I just have a few quick recommendations for you to remember. Number one, go to the pdc.wa.gov website to research your local politicians. Even if you don't want to file a complaint, the more you know, the better informed you're going to become. Number two, secondly, read RCW 4217A to better understand Washington State's campaign finance laws. I've linked to it down below. Start with the laws and then see if you can learn more from that. And three, finally, like always, it takes work to have an impact. You have to be willing to do something yourself. Maybe it starts with research just like this. Who knows? Regardless, if you want to make a difference, you have to show up because, as always, the future belongs to those who show up.